رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي يا رب العالمين. So we, on this book, Wabil al-Sayyib wa Ra'f al-Kalim al-Tayyib, entitled The Invocations of God by Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, when speaking about dhikrullah and its benefits, we've reached the fact that it's that which is, it is a means of quwwah and strength for the slave, that it gives him or her nur, light. And that light is that which can illuminate through their actions, firstly starting in their hearts, but then shows in their actions. And then Ibn al-Qayyim even gives a figurative by showing that, okay, that nur that's in your heart, just as the nur that is in the environment and in the sky and in the cosmos, that is needed for the sustenance of life. The nur of the heart is that which is of the wahi and of the iman, which brings life to the heart. And Ibn al-Qayyim continues on, rahimahullah ta'ala, and he says here, وَالسَّابِعَةُ وَالثَّلَاثُونَ أَنَّ الذِّكْرَ رَأْسُ الْأُمُورِ وطريق عامة الطائفة ومنشور الولاية فمن فتح له فيه فقد فتح له باب الدخول على الله عز وجل. He says that dhikr, أن الذِّكْرَ رَأْسُ الْأُمُورِ, that this is one of the most important affairs, or it is the Ra's is like the head of affairs. وطريق عامة الطائفة, and this is the way of those that are well acquainted and knowledgeable of this affair of dhikr. This is the way of the people that are the righteous and that do so. ومنشور الولاية, and this is the way of receiving the guardianship, that it will be spread for the person that makes this dhikr, that remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that says subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar. فمن فتح له فيه فقد فتح له باب الدخول على الله. He says here, the door to Allah opens for the one whom remembrance is opened. So whoever remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a way for the door of Allah to be opened for him or her. And the way that the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be opened is in numerous ways. So what's one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that deals with opening the doors for human beings? What's one name of Allah? Fattah. Al-Fattah, naam. Al-Fatih, come on, naam. Fatih, come on. Fattah. I know there's a Fattah, the one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that opens the doors and opens the opportunities. And certain times when you're trying to think about something and then all of a sudden that thought comes to you, that's Al-Fattah. Allah is the one that opened the doors and opened the opportunities or things that you did not think were possible or didn't anticipate. Allah is the one that opens that opportunity for you. So the one that says, as Ibn al-Qayyim says, فَمَنْ فُتِحَ لَهُ فِيهِ فَقَدْ فُتِحَ لَهُ بَابُ الدُّخُولِ عَلَى اللَّهِ. So that is kind of like the keys to the remembrance of Allah, or the keys to the kunuz, or the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the treasures of Allah is endless, and it opens in many different ways that we may not anticipate, in ways that we would not even expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at certain times of our life. How many times in our life we've mentioned Allah's name, for instance, after the salah here, and something that we made dua for years ago finally happened. Or something that we were about to make dua for, Allah brought it to you even before you made that dua. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors. And there are many different examples that we can give. And the doors could be for you or for someone you made dua for. Because of that dua that you made for that person a long time ago, Allah opens that door. So remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that which opens endless opportunities for you and other than you. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Fattah, and He is Al-Wasi. He is abundant and gives in abundance. قال رحمه الله تعالى الثامنة والثلاثون أن في قلبي خلة وفاقة لا يسدها شيء البتة إلا ذكر الله عز وجل فإذا صار شعار القلب بحيث يكون هو الذاكر بطريق الأصالة واللسان تبع له فهذا هو الذكر الذي يسد الخلة ويغني الفاقة. So Ibn al-Qayyim here mentions, he said that verily in the heart there is an emptiness and nothing can satisfy it except the remembrance of Allah. There is an emptiness and a need, and nothing can satisfy that except the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, فَإِذَا صَارَ شَعَارُ الْقَلْبِ, if this becomes the sign of the heart, meaning that if dhikr is something that one does regularly, one does this regularly, بحيث يكون هو ذاك بطريق الأصالة. And he continues to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the standard for him. وَاللِّسَانِ تَبْعًا لَهُ. The tongue will become something that follows it. فَهَذَا هُوَ الذِّكْرُ الَّذِي يَسُدُّ الْخُلَّةِ. This is the dhikr that closes or satisfies the need that the heart yearns for. And this is deep because, subhanAllah, when we look at what is happening now, people that have money and that have a lot of what the average person that may feel that contentment is in that thing. So money may be one of them. Popularity may be another one of them, right? Tangible things may be something that the average person wishes for. But you find when we see on television, on our computer screens, that this individual may have everything that one may desire. Belongings, they may desire that. But you will find a lot of times within that person is a level of what? Emptiness. Emptiness in the heart. And we talked about that before when we talked about the nur and the darkness. Remember, the nur is what? The nur of the heart is what? Iman. Iman. And that iman is given to you from what? What do you have to consume in order for that iman to increase? The wahi, the revelation, the Quran, the sunnah. The more one comes acquainted with that, gets knowledgeable of that, they have the strongest opportunity to come closer to Allah. And that is why that the scholars, the Prophet ﷺ said, that the scholars are the inheritors of the what? The scholars are the inheritors of the what? The prophets. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الْعُلَمَاءَ وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. That the scholars are the inheritors of the prophets, because that is why the scholar is looked at as the person of knowledge, because he knows more about Allah and about Islam. So it is expected that his iman is at that level because of that knowledge that he has. He has more probable opportunity of coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doesn't mean that the one that doesn't have knowledge doesn't come close to Allah and they're not sincere. But the more you know about someone, the more there is the opportunity to love them more or to dislike them more, because the more you may know about them. So with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you know his names, his attributes, his capabilities, what he does, what he's able to do, that increases your love of him. So the more you remember him, that increases your iman. And that's the iman that we're talking about. And there are people that don't have that. They don't believe in God. Or they believe that God is a form of creation. They totally say he's something that he says he's not. That is the essence of darkness. Make no mistake. That is the essence of darkness. And this may be family members. This may be friends. This may be co-workers. We can respect them and love them. We can respect them. But when it comes to that element of iman, the Muslim knows the most important element of life is worshiping Allah. And that's what keeps the heart alive. And that's what keeps the heart enlightened. Enlightened. So when Ibn al-Qayyim, subhanAllah, he talks about here that in the heart is an emptiness. An emptiness. This is so deep because, as I mentioned, we may see people that have things, but their heart is empty.
Is it al-khulla if we gap in the heart?
يعني فراغ. إيه نعم. So emptiness يعني empty فراغ.
So الذكر cover these gaps.
يمليه. يملئه. لا يغطيه لكن يملئه به النور كذا.
To fill it.
To fill it. No, exactly. It fills that gap and that emptiness. It fills that gap and that emptiness. And this is why, subhanAllah, someone may say, the level of contentment. As Muslims, what do we say contentment? Contentment, what does that really mean? What does that mean? How does contentment of the Muslim differ than contentment of the atheist? Iman? Explain. The atheist, okay, fills it with material things. Go deeper. Give me examples.
Quantification, intellectual stimulation
Mm-hmm.
or other stimulation.
Their pontification, their intellectual stimulation. So, what is happening around the world now? The atheist says, if there was a God, he would what? He would fix it. He would not allow what? Bad to happen. How in the world are you content with a God that lets this happen? So I don't find my contentment in having some false hope in a God that you say is merciful, but he allows this to happen. I find my contentment in what? The atheist. Mulhid.
What it means?
Mulhid.
So he did not believe on God.
لا يؤمن بأن هناك إله. Where does the atheist find contentment? So you said pontification and intellectual stimulation. So if they're intellectually stimulated by something, they feel that they've what the problem? They've solved the problem. The essence of their faith, their attachment, is that they were able to solve an intellectual problem. And because they solved it, they're like, I have the answer. But the Muslim, there's something called uncertainty tolerance. What does that mean?
They believe that trust in Allah is good, either during hard times, during good times. We believe that everything comes from Allah. I mean the good, the bad, and everything. Allah can test his believers through so many tribulations. So we believe in that. So that also gives us the contentment, to be faithful and trust.
You're almost there. I'm going to give you an example that's kind of qareeb. I like to do with okay, he's African. I'm African, by the way, in case you didn't know.
That thing is not coming from Allah.
So, I'm the first American in my lineage. أنا أول أمريكي في نسبي. والداي جاء إلى Arlington. My dad came to Chicago, then to Arlington, and then he brought the mother that didn't know English, and the mother came here, learned English, went to college, all that good stuff. Right? So I'm the first American in my lineage. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying history. Right? Are your children the first American in your lineage? Your children? First American. Right. Okay. So we hear the term African American, right? Why we have the term African American? Their ancestors, what? Came from Africa. Free labor. You know what I mean by free labor? Do you all know what I mean by free? The non-Africans, do you know what I mean by free labor? Yeah. The African, no, I mean, we're the product of, What? What do I mean by free labor? The transatlantic slave trade. I was teaching a new Muslim class a long time ago. A sister watched the movie 12 Years a Slave. Have any of you seen that movie? That's good. That's good. We're getting somewhere. MashaAllah. The Arab says he's seen Roots. This is very good, actually. But there's another one called 12 Years a Slave. اسمه 12 سنة كعبد. وهو عبارة عن استعباد كذلك. وواحد So the sister, she was very distraught. She came to the class and said, how could Allah allow this to happen? Now, she knew history. We all know about it. But movies, what they do is they paint the picture. Where you see, whoa, this is what really happened. We hear that slaves were packed like tuna fish and sardines at the bottom of boats going through the sea. But when you see a movie and they paint the picture for you, it's totally different, right? Like you get to see. So when she saw the movie, she came to class. She was frustrated. She was furious. Not frustrated. She was furious. How could Allah allow this to happen to people? Right? This is where we say, I don't know, but I'm content with the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is greater than mine, and his reasoning behind letting it happen is wise. The Muslim has contentment with his or her uncertainty. I don't have all of the answers, and I'm totally fine with that. That's the difference. The atheist has to have the answers. And if he doesn't, he or she relies on tangible things from science that they make an analogy from one to the other to determine that most likely this is what's going to happen. And if they can't answer the question, they don't believe it. Or if they can't answer the question, they rely on tangible things. But it's a level of frustration until they get the answer. But the Muslim, the fact that they don't have the answer, they're totally fine with that. As a matter of fact, the fact that they don't have the answer and their contentment with it in and of itself is worship.
لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون.
لا. كونه لا يعرف سبب فعل الله في شيء ما ليست لديهم مشكلة. يؤمنون بأنهم لا يعرفوا سبب وقوع من وقائع الدنيا وفي الكون. وكونهم يؤمنون في ذلك ولا يعرفوا سببه هذا عين العبادة. فهمت؟ لماذا الله سبحانه وتعالى يأذن أو يقدر أن الناس يقتلون ويذبحون في غزة؟ لا نعرف لماذا يعني يقدر ذلك، لكن نؤمن ونثق فيه أن هناك سببا إلهيا حكمة. نعم، أن هناك سببا وحكمة في ذلك. ولا نرتاب في إيمان. I'm saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this to happen, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening around the world, but we know that there's a divine wisdom behind it, and we are content with that. And that contentment is worship. And that's why sometimes people, we have to be very careful, especially when we read these self-development books and meditation and all of this, right? Some of the terminologies they use, the implication behind the terminology can be un-Islamic. So, for instance, searching for a happy life. There's a difference between what the Muslim is very important to have is contentment. Contentment with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has predestined. And that contentment is what makes one quote unquote, let's say, happy. Right? That is very, very, very important. And that is what fills the heart. That's why anytime you face any emotional distress, what do we do in the sunnah? Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, qadarallahu ma sha'a fa'al. Astaghfirullah. I've done something bad, I feel terrible. What do we say? Astaghfirullah. You think of Allah being Al-Ghafur. You see what is happening around the world. Subhanallah. You see the greatness of Islam. You see people, and I remember the first time I saw Muslims making tawaf around the Kaaba, I was like, what is that? That is amazing. And he said, they're Muslims. I said, Muslims? No, Muslim is Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad. That's Islam, right? I said, no, this is Islam. This is real Islam. I said, what are those? He said, that's people moving all together. What is that black box? I've never seen anything like that in my life. Where are they from? Are they Arabs? Well, not all of them. People come from around the world. What? And then the person was talking to me, said, I've been there. You've been in this little thing here? Right? Totally amazing. An amazing. I remember the first time I saw that, I was blown. I walked into his house and he had a big screen TV, and I was like, what in the world is that black box, and what are those little things moving around? Right? So you see that worship of Allah, and while you're doing that, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, when you see something like that, Allahu Akbar. You say, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. He's great. He's the greatest that he legislated something like this. And that in and of itself fills the heart, fills the void, because you trust in Allah that he will quote unquote make everything okay. You are content with the fact that you don't have all the answers. And that is the main difference when the one worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala is saying in the 38th benefit that the qalb, that the heart, there is an emptiness and a need that nothing will close that, and nothing will fill it. لا يسدها شيء, except the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those that remember His name, that mention His name in ease and in hardship, and allow that mentioning of His name to nourish and irrigate our hearts and the seeds with our hearts to allow the iman to grow. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, forgive us in this life and be pleased with us in this life, and give us the greatness in the next life, and forgive us from our previous sins, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and protect us from the chastisement of the fire, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Make us of those that are the dhakirin and the shakirin, those that mention your name plentifully, and those that thank you and have gratitude towards you and gratitude to what you have brought to us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.